Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Brandon. Welcome to Audio Addiction, where you can find latest album reviews. You can find our band interviews, and you can find live coverage of the concerts that we get. You got 2 album reviews this week. If you missed it out, check out the 4 Year Strong Brain Pain. I know it's been out for a couple weeks now, but I wanted to give my take on it. So if you enjoy that band, go check that one out. And I have a few other reviews that I'm working on. They are records that have already come out already, so if you get the chance to, go check them out. I've posted interviews with these bands, so make sure to go give them a listen. But tonight, we're going to be talking about Invent Animate's newest record, Greyview. I've been a fan of this band for a pretty decent amount of time. I would say I found out about them at the tail end of Everchanger, which was released in 2014. I fell in love with them in 2016 with their record Still World, and I was very curious on how this record was going to sound, being that this is their first record with Marcus since Ben, their ex-vocalist, left the band. And so, you know, whenever a band loses a vocalist, I always try to give them the chance, you know, to love the band again, because it's always very tough. And, you know, I feel like they already go through it enough stress as it is, as being a new vocalist and taking, you know, control of a band that's already existing. And so I was very curious to check this out. I had checked out, I believe, only one of the singles, which was Cloud Cascade. I really wanted to go into this blind, other than, like I said, the first single. And so I really just didn't know anything about this record besides that single. And so I'm going to go through each track, give you my thoughts and opinions on it, go through some pros and cons, and then finish it out with an overall rating. So the first track is called Dark. They released a single of this one pretty recently, and I would have to say that this is definitely the calm before the storm. Again, going into it knowing only one of the singles, and, you know, it being the second track, I was just curious on, you know, how the album was going to be arranged, like, you know, how everything was going to go. And so I really feel like this track sets the mood for the rest of the record. It has this sort of darker, no pun intended, undertone to it. I love the ethereal guitar parts brought to you by Keaton, while also providing some really great, like, low end, and they've always been known for doing that sort of stuff. But just in this track, I think the juxtaposition between those two is one of the major reasons why I love this band, is just kind of the jarringness of the heavy guitars balanced out with some really just beautiful, clean, like, licks and like riffs. And I think whatever they got going on, and especially what Keaton's doing, is very awesome, and I absolutely love it. Marcus makes his vocal debut at the 50-second mark of this track. Like I said, I know that they had released Cloud Cascade, so technically it isn't, but in terms of the record, if you had not listened to any of the tracks, this would be the first indication of Marcus's vocals. And I really feel like this, in terms of his vocals, really reach depths, while, you know, Trey's blast beats and just really just obscene drumming parts come out. And like I said, that is kind of a footnote to how the rest of the record will definitely pan out, and I'll get a little bit probably more hyped about it as we go on. Caleb's definitely holding it down with the low end, playing the bass parts. I think he adds a really big fullness to the tracks. Like I said, Keaton being only the one guitar player, and obviously providing both the lead parts and also the rhythm parts. I think that he does a great job of filling in those kind of empty spaces that I feel like would be otherwise remissed in a track or any album that they've done up to this point. An impressive track instrumentally. I think if you haven't already listened to this one already, go listen to it, because it is really fantastic. Actually, all of the singles you should go give a listen to. But I love the way that the chorus is played out in this track, the melodic punch just with Marcus's vocals, and just how he kind of emulates that sort of like scream yell that Sam from Architects does. And I know that a lot of other bands emulate, and so I feel like he does a great job of doing that, and obviously putting it in his own like way and form. And I really feel like it fits with just the lighter sort of aspects of the chorus. So it's definitely one that I dug. I also feel like it shows a lot of the sort of the beauty behind, their music, and how, again, they can go from those really just heavy aggressive moments, but also have those beautiful ambient ethereal kind of, guitar parts that just really transcend a lot of these tracks. And so I think this is an absolutely great opener to the record, and definitely one, again, that you should go give a listen to. So we're going to move into track number 2, which is Cloud Cascade. As I mentioned earlier, it is one of the singles as well, and I was immediately sold on this track as soon as it came out. And I had found out that Marcus, obviously he had left Aviana a while ago and to join Invent Animate, and so this was the first track that everybody had that introduction of him to. Obviously, if you were familiar with his work in Aviana, it feels, he feels very much at home, at least in my opinion, to Invent Animate. And so definitely dug this track pretty early on, and I still love it. It's still one of my favorites, without a doubt. But it also made me realize how much I missed this band. They had gone, like I said, they had gone on hiatus for a little bit, and so it just made me miss this band and being back in the spotlight again. So it was very cool to hear that. I think just sonically and just the way that the tracks arrange is really masterful. I love that in the first verse it has this really sonic dissonance to it, in comparison to the second verse where Marcus shows off some of his clean abilities, and with just kind of these like really beautiful ethereal elements, as I've been mentioning a lot throughout this review. And so I really dug that. And also something that really surprised me the most was how catchy this chorus gets. And as I had been listening to it over the past couple days, this part really struck me the most, and it was something that I was like, this is one of the catchier choruses off this record in general. And I also just found like this familiarity to this song in particular. It feels very much, Still World-esque or like Everchanger-esque. It has that Invent Animate seal of approval. And so considering how much of a break they took, and just how long I've been waiting for new music from them, this feels very familiar, and I definitely appreciate that about this track. So we're gonna move into track number 3, which is Reflection Room. And my god, can we just talk about how good Trey is on the drums? He is a monster, and I really want to just stress this so much, but listen to literally the beginning portion to around the 30-second mark. Just the blast beats alone is just wild to me, and just the way that he kind of transcends different sort of drumming patterns and rhythmic patterns throughout this song and a lot of other tracks off this record is just shows off of his just extreme ability as a drummer. And seeing some of these songs live on Sunday was just insane. Or Tuesday, I mean, not Sunday. I don't know why I said Sunday. Tuesday, and it was just nuts. His drumming ability was just as good, if maybe not even just a smidge better live. And so to see him play not this track, but Cloud Cascade, Halcyon, like those sorts of tracks, Dark, it was cool to see that, and just his drumming ability. But getting back to this track, as I mentioned, the rhythmic patterns throughout this track are really incredible, and I think they're incredibly navigated by Trey. And just to add on to that, I think that the heaviness of this track is just insurmountable. It's, at least I think so, some of their heaviest work to date. I love the gang vocals at around the 1 minute and 55-second mark to around the 2 minutes and 14-second mark. They kind of superimpose themselves into the next portion of that song. I believe it's like the chorus or maybe like a bridge part, but it was really tight. And this one was definitely a little bit more ethereal, but also kind of playing off of their more like darker, more like almost like death metal-esque vibes there throughout this track. And so just to me, the thing that just spoke to me the most was Trey's drumming. I think that if you are a drummer, this is primo stuff for you. So we're gonna move into track number 4, which is Hollow Light. I will have to say that this one is one of the best composed tracks that they've done in a while. I love the lead guitar intro with like that sort of tapping bit, and just the way that this track really just grooves. I think that they really found a sick pocket, and they really just stuck in it, and it shows in a track like this one where, you know, everything's just hitting for me, and the vocals, the drums, the bass, the guitar, everything just feels like in harmony and in rhythm. And I love the chorus of this track. It's super catchy. Definitely up there, probably like top 2 choruses off this record. Really enjoyed this one a lot. I fell in love with Marcus's melodies, the way that he was able to kind of just concoct some of his melodies and arrange them throughout this song in particular. I would say most likely more so the chorus, but just eloquently arranged. And I love how ambient this track is, but also in comparison to how gnarly it is. And probably my favorite portion of the track is the 2 minutes and 14-second mark to around the 2 minutes and 43-second mark. Gnarly stuff. So excited for a lot of you to listen to this. I know the wait is almost over. You'll be able to listen to it soon, but my God, that part, primo. Love it. We're moving to track number 5, which is Shapeshifter. This one features Silent Planet's vocalist, Garrett. Shoutouts to Silent Planet. Love those guys. You guys put on a great show on Tuesday. I remembered. But getting back to this track, this one feels a little bit more tame in comparison to the past 4 tracks, which is really nice because, you know, not to say that they have to just go balls to the wall, but I like when it's not just 100,000,000% all at the same time. I like when they are able to kind of take a little bit of a break. I feel like it's like 80, you know, like 75%, 80% Invent Animate, like as you know them to be, like true to form. But just maybe a little bit, like a little tamer, which is really nice. I love the good groove of this track. I think that Garrett adds a really strong portion of this track, and his part is from the 1 minute and 35-second mark to around the 2 minutes and 30-second mark. And he just sounds on point as per usual. I think his screaming towards the beginning half was really solid, but I would say towards the latter half of his vocal feature is where he really, you know, blows the roof off of the building. I also would have loved to hear Marcus kind of do some layered screaming with Garrett in that second half of the song. I think the song would have just hit just a little bit more. I think from just like a vocal aspect and just considering how long of a feature they had, it was like literally almost a minute's worth of the song. So I would have loved to hear kind of like if it wasn't maybe like Garrett doing the screaming, but also like Marcus maybe doing some clean parts, or like Marcus like following up with some really like high scream parts to like counteract what Garrett's doing in the lower register. I think that would have been really solid. I just feel like it's a little bit of a missed opportunity. I still enjoy the song a great deal, but I think that would have put it over the top just a little bit more. So we're gonna move into track number 6, which is Heaven Alone. This is a nice little interlude. I think it sets up to the next track, Monarch, very well. It also kind of recycles some of the melodies of Monarch in this track, so I do like that they have that little like palette cleanser in the middle portion of this record, because again, Shapeshifter, while it was a little bit more tame, it is still fairly aggressive, and so it was a nice change of pace to have that in the middle of this album. So we're going to move into track number 7, which is Monarch. This is one of the singles that they have released. I think this one is the most current one to my knowledge, or most current to this recording, and I'm almost positive they will not release another one before this. But this one is another groovy one. I think much like the reason why I love Hollow Light is much of the same reason why I love this track. And it gets right in. It isn't shy. It will dig right in. And I also feel like one of the stronger points of this song is Marcus's lower screaming range. I don't feel like there was as much opportunity to use it maybe in the first half of this record, but I like that he brings it out a little bit more in tracks like this. And I think his vocal range really spans everything. Again, he's doing the clean vocal duties. He's also doing the screaming duties. And I think he straddles both of those super well. He has these really great high screams that just really cut through the track. And then his clean vocals also really cut through the track as well. And I think that in terms of the vocal performances throughout this entire record, this one is one of his strongest easily, because he's able to kind of jump between all those different ones and wear different hats, and it really works. I love the drop between the 1 minute and 53-second mark to around the 2 minutes and 22-second mark. That was really solid, but I would say probably my favorite portion of this track is the 2 minutes and 50-second mark to the end of the track. Just when there's a slow build, you knew something juicy is going to happen. And so that last minute of this track is just absolute pure bliss to me. I really just enjoy it. It allows me to kind of, listen to everything in its own individual piece. And as I was going through this track and reviewing this record in general, I was trying to pick out different things each time I listened to it. And I feel like this one, just the breakdown on this track, especially at the end, just hits differently. And so I really enjoy this track, and it's one that you should go give a listen because it is out now. So we're going to move into track number 8, which is Fireside. And this one really took me by surprise at first. I think, much like some of the other tracks off of this record that really kind of, really surprised me, I think that this one is going to shock a lot of people, not in a bad way. I think this is just a shock in a very good way, but it feels very novelist-esque. It has a lot more clean vocals. I'd say the most clean singing you'll hear on this record. I would say maybe the only other song that might challenge it would maybe be like Halcyon. But other than that, I think track is like mostly clean singing. I'd say maybe like 80-20 or like 90-10. Which is really cool because you don't really get to hear his clean vocals so far, and just his range as a clean vocalist, I feel like in comparison to Ben, is much larger. He's able to do a lot more. He has these kind of like lower register singing that sounds really fantastic, and then he can really belt out these high notes with like a little bit of rasp to it, or he can do it cleanly, and it just adds a layer of dimension that I felt like Ben maybe couldn't have done if he was still in the band. But this song just punches in all the right places, but it also shows off their like more delicate, more ethereal, more ambient aspects of their band, and I know that is equally as strong of a point of their band, but also I feel like it was not played up as much as when you hear a drop that Invent does, it's real good, but like in comparison to kind of their more ethereal moments, I feel like people don't listen to it and are like, oh man, I love that like real kind of like clean guitar part, at least the people that I've come across. And so I feel like the comparison of that and just using more of that clean tonality and just that, playing off their etherealness, really solid. I think that this one is a sleeper track, definitely a black sheep of the record. So we're moving to track number 9, which is Secret Sun. I love that little subtle rhythm change, and they do it a little bit later on in this track, I think closer to the 40-second mark, but from 28 seconds to 32 seconds, it's just this little subtle rhythm change that just, to me, is money. Every time that this track comes on, it just hits. I don't know what about it. It's just something about it that just clicks in my head that's just like, I love this. And it's just those little subtle nuances that make this song a sleeper track for me, because a lot of the guitar riffs, the drumming, the rhythmic pattern is just on point, and their awareness of being on having this like time, rhythmic timing is just wild to me. And so I really enjoy this track for the technicality aspect of it, just because there's just these little things, like I mentioned earlier, these little nuances that make this track just what it is. And I honestly can't explain it without kind of playing the track, but this one hands down a sleeper track. I think a lot of people will enjoy this one, but it's gonna fly. I feel like it's gonna fly under a lot of people's radars. But let me know in the comments if you definitely dig this one a lot too. And also just Keaton's guitar riffs, next level stuff. As I mentioned, just their awareness of time, rhythmically, just on point. So we're gonna move into track number 10, which is Eden. The intro is super cool in this track. I love the reverbed out drums with the guitar combo, super sick. The chorus in this track is stupid catchy, and I also feel like this track shows off Marcus's screaming and singing. It feels very 50-50. There's a good amount of clean singing in it, but there's also a good amount of screaming where need be. Really nothing extra to write home about. If you are just a fan of Invent Animate in general, I feel like you'll dig this one a lot, but there wasn't anything to, I guess, stand out to me in this track. So we're going to move into track number 11, which is Bright Wing. And this one is really well put together. The way that they're able to kind of have these beautiful melodies, paired with these like brutal chugs and breakdowns and riffs, is just beyond me. The way that they have these things structured out must have taken just so much time, and I think their meticulousness shows off in tracks like this, where, you know, again, much of the reason why I enjoy Secret Sun is probably a lot of the same reasons why I enjoy Bright Wing, just because of those little, just those changes, the way that they kind of emulate and implement these things into these tracks are just really fantastic. My favorite part is around the 1 minute and 10 second mark to around the 1 minute and 30 second mark. I just really enjoy that rhythmic section, and just that little bass break from Caleb at around the 1 minute and 55 second mark to the 2 minutes and 3 second mark. I think it's really solid. Just like I said, those little subtle nuances that when you're listening a little bit more intently are just make the tracks just that much more interesting. And I think as people listen to it, there's just these little things that people will pick out. And so I probably listened to this album maybe like 10, I would say in the low ballpark, maybe like 10 times, and in the high ballpark, maybe like 20 times. But just every time I came out with something different, and so this time this is how I felt about it. But probably the best portion of the track is around the 2 minutes and 55 second mark to the end. Just that last breakdown, money stuff. Again, they know how to just kill it with these breakdowns. I really cannot tell you how rad some of these breakdowns are, but really enjoyed this one. Definitely a heavier one, so if you're in the mood for that and just those sort of darker undertones, this is the one for you. So we're gonna move into track number 12, which is Halcyon. This is one of the singles that they released. They released a music video for it, which is very awesome. And I really dug this track a lot. I think it has a lot of the amazing elements of why I love Invent Anime. The chorus is fire in this track, and I think Marcus just is on another level vocally. I think it's up there with I would say Fireside in terms of vocal just prowess and change. I would also say it's up there with Monarch as well in terms of just the range that Marcus is able to kind of achieve in a track like this, where the song just immediately kicks in and he's got this real like kind of like gritty like clean vocal part, and then he cuts into some like heavy like low screaming, and then he goes back to some singing parts, and then he does some like high-pitched screaming. It's just really well executed, and I think that the band also matches that level of intensity. And so when all of them are just hitting on that level, it makes these tracks that much better. And so I really love this track a lot. I think this is one of the best singles released so far. I would say definitely Halcyon and Monarch are probably my two favorite singles that are out currently. But again, you really can't go wrong with any of the ones that I mentioned. They are all fantastic, and they're all different. So definitely give them all a listen before you listen to this record, because they are all very solid. But probably my favorite part, and much like a lot of other people out there, I would say would be the 2 minutes and 53 second mark to around the 3 minutes and 16 second mark. It's just huge. That part just hits, and I love it. The drop is massive, especially towards like that half portion of the time signature that I just mentioned. Just that drop is just, oh man, it just so nice. Love it. And we're gonna move into the last track number 13, which is Nova. And I really have to say, this is the culmination of this record. And really the reason why I'm just like really just elated about this record, because it is so heavy, it's so melodic. I really feel like Marcus is such a great fit with this band, and they found a great vocalist, and his vocals really match their intensity, as not only on a screaming level, but also on a clean level. He's able to kind of experiment with his clean vocals, and I feel like in a track like this, while it starts off a little bit slow and more melodic, it really just kind of tail ends and really picks up towards, once the guitars, the drums, the bass kicks in. It just really becomes a full-fledged track, and it's an excellent way to close out this record and really kind of, again, pull different aspects of this record and kind of emulate and kind of work them into one last final track for this record. And so some pros and cons that I have about it. Pros, I think Marcus is such a great fit, as I mentioned a lot throughout this review. I think that he really shows off his range as a vocalist, and I also feel like he is able to improve on what Ben did in this band. And as much as I love Still World, I feel like this one exceeded it and did even more so. I went back and listened to it before I listened to this record, and as much as I love Ben and I love Still World, I really can't help but just be filled with just a lot of happiness for this band, because they really put a lot of heart and soul into this record, and you can hear it. Like, there is just something about it instrumentally that is just wild and on another level. They're able to kind of tap into a bunch of different genres, everything from like progressive metalcore to like, like some like deathcore-esque elements, death metal elements. And I might not even have the right sort of genres correct, but just the way that they are able to incorporate and mix in different sort of elements, blast beats, some more rhythmic patterns, vocal changes, stuff like that. They really brought a different element to this record, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And just considering the level and the landscape of the records that have been released so far, and my favorites so far being Polaris and Loathe, this is right up there, if not better. I really feel like at this current time, this might be the best heavy record out there so far. I know we are still very early in 2020, but it just speaks. This record speaks to me, and so I feel like it's going to speak to a lot of you. If you're a fan and you've been waiting for a new Invent, I can tell you that the wait is almost over, and that you'll finally have this record in your hands. So my overall rating for Invent Animate's Greyview, I'm going to be giving it a 9.8 out of 10. I really feel like this is a strong contender for Album of the Year. I know that I had said that about 2 other records so far, and I know that, again, it is very early on in 2020, but 2020 has been good, very good so far. So I am very excited for people who are fans of this band and really care about this band. And if you do really care about this band, please go pick it up, because honestly, they ripped it the other night in Philly, and I am so excited to see them again, and just to see them play a lot of these newer tracks, because I'd love to see how they translate live. And I just felt like Marcus brought a really great energy, and I just wanted to say this in video format just for them to see. And go support them, go check them out on tour. Go check out that tour in general. It is fucking fantastic, and you should go give it a listen. So let me know in the comments what your favorite tracks are. If you agree with me, if you disagree, I'd love to have a really great conversation about this record, and just to see what your guys' thoughts on it as well. And if you enjoyed this review, make sure to share it, like it, subscribe. It goes a long way. And we have plenty of more content to come from the channel, so if you enjoyed this long review, there are probably going to be more before the year is over with. So my name is Brandon. We hope you got your fix, and we'll be talking with you soon. Peace.